Hi, Jonathan. Congratulations on passing the PE Power exam in the first attempt. We also did a FE exam preparation review with you, and you passed the FE course in the first attempt. So let's go through your PE Power exam preparation journey. Let's start with when you booked the exam. So I think you cleared the FE exam in October last year,
Yep.
October, November, right? That's October of 2020.
Yes.
And from December 1st, 2020, they actually changed the format of the PE Power exam to a closed book, computer based, almost similar to the FE exam with the handbook. And you ended up taking the computer based closed book. So, if you can walk me through your exam preparation journey for PE Power, the challenges you faced, your timelines, your approach, and all of that good stuff.
Okay. Well, there were challenges on time, of course. You need, at least for me, and I know a lot of others, an immense amount of preparation. So for me, the first step was making sure that my schedule was cleared, no additional personal projects that I was endeavoring on, and all that other stuff. So trying to free up time. That was one of the things I did, and that's what I did for the FE too. Until I was ready to kind of dedicate a lot of time continuously, I didn't start it. And looking back, I think that was the right call because it's a tremendous effort, and you can't really divide your time between too many things.
Right.
Um, as far as studying, I used your video course and
The on
also the
demand.
practice problems booklet to go along with it. And the way I did it, same for the FE and the PE, was first I went through the video courses, and then after the end of each lecture, I basically did the practice problems, and I found that worked well. The videos helped introduce the topic and refresh anything you may have forgotten, or if it was a new topic, help bring you up to speed quickly. And then the practice problems helped really kind of nail it down.
So after completing the FE exam successfully, after passing it successfully in the first attempt, what was your impression of the PE Power exam? What did you think? Whether it was going to be difficult, easy, whether it's going to be in depth or relatively high level, and how did you find it to be when you started your exam preparation?
I thought it would be difficult,
Okay,
and that was my final impression. It was a difficult exam. It
it's
required a lot of preparation. Everyone, of course, who takes it has gone through the FE process, has worked, as an engineer for many years, and, probably a pretty smart person. But that said, it's a tough exam.
right. I like how your initial impression was that it's a tough exam. In fact, sometimes when I have these calls with students who have enrolled in my FE course or my PE course, when I have this one-on-one call with them, and then I tell them that, okay, listen, FE exam is going to be tough. I tell them the same thing. PE exam is tough. It's not easy. No matter, even for FE exam, if you've been out of school recently, or even if you're a recent graduate or final year student, you still have to study. Okay, you might be super smart. Everything might be fresh in your memory. You might be well versed with taking the exams. All of that will be an added bonus. But it is very rare or highly unusual for you to actually skip the studying portion and then expect that you're still going to pass. So, I mean, no one would, in their sane mind, would skip studying. But to start off with that baseline that, okay, this exam is difficult, I try and recommend students to assume that it's difficult and then work hard to make it easy for yourself. And in your case, you're saying that was your initial starting point and you ended up with the same conclusion. It didn't really change.
Yeah, it was tough. It needed a lot of study for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, and without the study, it wouldn't have worked out well.
Right. But wouldn't you agree, Jonathan, that P Power exam is actually much more fun to prepare for as compared to the FE exam?
I don't know if I'd use the word fun, but it's a lot more relevant.
Okay.
Like you could see yourself using this. So
Right.
certain things you're like, oh, it's good I kind of touched up on that, or oh, I've expanded my knowledge base in a certain area.
Right.
So it's much more relevant, and yeah, it's probably less frustrating than the FE, because a lot of stuff on the FE, it just doesn't have any relevance towards really what you're doing. Or
Right.
at least that was my impression. Some of it did, but a lot of it didn't. So
yeah, I would say probably 30% max would apply to whether you're a power systems engineer or telecom engineer or a computer engineer. But when it comes to PE, because you get to choose which stream you select, right? So you took PE power, so you're a power systems engineer with a little bit of a controls background, and it touches up, I would say 70% or even 80% of it is quite relevant. And I take this opportunity, and I know we were having this discussion earlier as well, that within the course, if there is a topic which I find is fairly abstract, it's pretty convoluted, and I can name a bunch, but let's say grounding, right? You would have come across in your professional career several engineers who have a very convoluted idea about grounding. A lot of people, I notice that unless they actually start designing and deal with it on a regular basis, a lot of people can't even explain the difference between grounding and bonding, right? So I take that opportunity to go over some of those concepts in detail. Now, in the FE course, I keep it fairly high level because there's so much content to cover. But in the PE course, this is essentially your last opportunity to sort of sit back and go back and review the fundamentals, right? So I find that a lot of students find that interesting as well. And you were commenting that you found value in that too.
Oh yeah, there were definitely, there's a lot of added value where like you said, we reviewed fundamental concepts or touched on subjects that didn't necessarily have a lot of familiarity with. So there's, of course, the purpose of it was to pass the exam, but there was also an element of professional development in there, which was great.
Right. And in terms of your study approach, you're saying that basically you went through the course, lecture, quiz, problem sets, and the study guide, right? And in your particular case, you actually went through the course 2 times or slightly even over 2 times, right? You did quite intense review. And that hard work actually paid off during the exam because you were able to finish both sessions early, right? Because of the proficiency that you gained by spending that much amount of effort during your preparation phase, so that you were not stressed on the time. How would you compare the timing? Because I know you prepared hard for FE as well, but in FE it's a very time sensitive, right?
Yeah,
exam.
Yeah. FE is more timing is part of the challenge, definitely. In the PE, I didn't find it was part of the challenge at all. In both sessions, as you mentioned, I had extra time. I didn't rush. I mean, I didn't dawdle either,
right?
But I just went at a comfortable pace, and just by not wasting any time, I had lots of extra time, such that I didn't go through anymore because there was no need.
Right. Yeah, and I think again, nothing to take away from the amount of effort, as I said multiple times, that you put in and did a couple of reviews of the course and gained the proficiency, did a bunch of practice problems through the book and through the course. All of that helped, but almost identical level of effort, as I said, was put in for the FE exam as well. But I'm just reiterating it because students have this notion that sometimes, because you're coming fresh from FE, right? And you still have that mindset that, okay, you know what, reference handbook, Control F or bookmarks and find this keyword, and then there's that equation and then punch it in. No, it's not necessary. Like there might be some questions because generally speaking, when exam is designed, and that's going back through my experience in undergraduate and graduate studies as well, a portion of the exam is always designed for people who have barely studied. Okay, that might be 10 to 20% of the exam. Right? So everybody should be able to cash in on that, right? And then I would say a fair chunk of the exam, maybe 30%, 40%, or even 50% or more, would be for people who have actually put in the necessary amount of time, reasonable amount of time, so that basically they've not completely slacked off, right? So that they can do, right? And then at the top percentile, there would be like 10 to 20 or maybe 30% for those who have really studied super hard, right? They have put in the absolute effort to essentially, these are the people who are trying to ace the exam, and that's in undergraduate studies and graduate studies. And I think that carries over, right? So you will still find some plug and plays, maybe. You will still find questions that are freebies, that students like to call them. But by and far, how would you compare the PE level of difficulty with FE in that context?
It's definitely a lot more challenging. They give you more time and less questions, but there's a reason for that. I found that generally the FE exam, was mostly one concept. Either you find an equation, you put it in, you get the answer, you're done.
Right.
But with the PE exam, I found that typically there were two components to pretty much every question. Like you had to take two thoughts or knowledge bases and put them together to get the answer. So that added a level of complexity. If you didn't, if you only know A, but you don't know B, you're not going to get the answer right. And sometimes, often, there were answers if you just knew A, but
Right.
in the question, if you ignored the subtlety that they put there,
Yeah.
you didn't pick up on B, then the answer was there, but it was the wrong answer.
Yeah.
So they definitely expect you to carefully read the questions and to pick out the fine details. They're not hidden.
Yeah.
And they're not hard to identify. But if you're rushing through, like you probably did on the FE exam, I know that's what I was doing. If you miss that second portion of it, you're going to get the question wrong. So that would be one thing that I'd recommend to others is you have time, read the question multiple times, make sure you understand it.
Right. And Johnathan, to be honest, I find it, in my opinion, that's how it should be. Because when you're taking the PE, you're getting closer and closer to getting your license. I mean, after that, it's all procedural work, documentation, and this and that, right? That's almost a done deal. Uh, and I think you would agree that real life engineering is exactly like that,
Yeah.
right? When you're working on, if you're especially working as a design engineer, you can oversimplify things and later find out that you overlooked things, right? And then any rework or mistakes in the field are 5 to 10 times more difficult to fix than they were when the design was on your table, on your desk, right? When you were working through and you probably made some oversimplified decisions, right? And I know from my personal experience as well, working in power systems engineering for over 10 years now, that the devil is always in the details, right? So having that detail oriented mindset, and it's not a buzzword just people like to write, or that they should be just writing on their resumes or in the job description. It is really a mindset, right? That if you're detail oriented, especially when on things, essentially when they're doing getting into the final design phase, I mean, you should double check, triple check, and be the devil's advocate whenever you are looking at okay, is this right, or what could go wrong, type of thing. And I'm glad that the PE exam sort of tests you in on that front as much as an exam can really test you. Like real life situations are obviously quite different, and this is still like calculation and mostly checking your analytical skills, your reading ability, your ability to translate situations and things like that. But in real life, you will always have that option to take shortcut, right?
Yeah.
And oversimplify and assume things, which makes things simple in the short run. But in the long run, that's just one of the skills that I found very good engineers to have, to be very, very detail oriented at times when I graduated and I started working, I've found that some of those types of engineers could be very difficult to work with, because they have very high standard and they would basically nitpick everything, right? But over time, you find out that these are the people or the members of the team and the project that essentially keeps things together, right? Keep things together. Because if they start overlooking stuff, then overall quality is going to go down. So in terms of the course, Johnathan, why would you recommend someone the course? You went through the FE course, you passed it. The PE course is relatively new. Why do you think somebody should be investing their time and money um, in this course to help expedite them and achieve the goal?
Well, it's it provides order. Like how do you actually prepare for the exam? So kind of step by step takes you through from the first topic from the handbook to the last topic. Sorry. It just walks you through, honestly. That's kind of the best way to see it. It guides you through the entire process for the preparation, and what else would you want from it? You want to pass, right? So you want to get through the entire process and learn whatever you can professionally as well, and it does exactly that.
Right. So if you put in the due time and effort, in your case, for example, you went through it twice. So if you've put in the due time and effort and follow the course, try and make an effort to engage with the content and retain the knowledge, and on the game day, on the exam day, essentially execute it properly, you have a very high chance of passing, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Congratulations again, Johnathan. I really appreciate your time. And I am confident that this effort that you've been putting in, your FE exam preparation in 2020, and now with the PE almost 5 to 6 months, I would say, it's going to pay off in the long run. You have a lot of career ahead of you. And this, I assume it has already started helping you in getting the recognition, and it will pay off dividends for the rest of your career.
No doubt.
Thank
you.
Thank you.